Your cells are typically in a growth response or a protection response or listening to elevator music. Dr. Lipton identifies love as the most powerful trigger of a growth response. So the cell is getting energy, it's growing, it's expanding awareness, and then of course protection is fear, anger, all those things. And he identifies fear as the most powerful trigger of the protection response. This is the essence of the human defaulting into fight or flight survival mode. Okay, more breather show emanating from Dr. Bruce Lipton's wonderful book, The Biology of Belief. We're going to get into some amazing relationship tips to achieve true breakthroughs from flawed and dysfunctional patterns. I've talked about the premise of how we are operating from flawed subconscious programming 95 to 98% of the time, as detailed in my interview with Dr. Bruce Lipton. So please listen to the whole thing, and also detailed in the book, The Biology of Belief, and also another great book called The Honeymoon Effect, where he deals specifically with romantic relationships, applying these insights. So I'm going to tee it up with another discussion of what the foundational premise of his work is, and then we're going to get into it and do some mind-blowing, transformative work and a ready-to-apply strategy right out of the gate. Oh my gosh. So Dr. Lipton, internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit, stem cell biologist, best-selling author, Biology of Belief. He uses principles of quantum physics and how they apply to his understanding of the cell's information processing systems. Breakthrough studies on the cell membrane revealed that the outer layer of the cell was an organic homologue of a computer chip, the cell's equivalent of a brain. He calls these things perception switches on the membrane of the cell. So the cell perceives information from the outside. Like I say, it's the bicep is being asked to contract to lift the weight. Pretty simple example of an outside simulation acting upon the cell. But we also have the evidence from Dr. Lipton's work that our thoughts will also affect cellular function at all times, especially that easy example to understand where we think about something, we get angry, and we generate stress hormones and different changes in our cellular functions based on the message sent by our thoughts to the perception switches, the cell's equivalent of a brain. And then we have all kinds of epigenetic insights that emanate from this reality that our cells have perception switches. So epigenetic means the influence of the environment on one's gene expression. And this completely transforms the flawed and dated beliefs that we often harbor about genes, that this is our fixed programming in our destiny is the genes that we received from our parents. So when we go to the doctor and answer the questionnaire and they ask you, do you have a family history of heart disease or colon cancer or whatever, and okay, now we're going to put you in a different category because of that. Of course, that stuff is relevant. However, the thoughts and actions that you engage in day after day have a tremendous influence on gene expression at all times. And that's the foundational premise of the Primal Blueprint. We spend a lot of time talking in that book about how to transform your mindset from this fixed and rigid perception of genes as fixed heritable traits, and instead see your genes in your body as a bunch of switches that turn on and off subject to the signals that they receive from the environment. That means thoughts. That means doing curls with the dumbbell, going for an exercise, going for a pleasurable experience, jumping out of the airplane, skydiving. Oh my gosh, how fun. All those things affect gene expression in real time. So here's the disturbing and mind-blowing premise from Dr. Bruce, quote, "When operating from the conscious mind, we're creators of our lives. However, when we operate through the subconscious mind," which again, he argues we're operating from 95 to 98% of the time, "our lives are shaped by the raw downloaded programs we acquired in the first 7 years of our lives. Science has now recognized that we only use the creative conscious mind 5% of the day. This insight is profound because it reveals that we are not creating the lives we desire, but we are unconsciously, through the subconscious mind, manifesting lives that are coherent with the beliefs we downloaded as children. Since up to 70% of the downloaded beliefs we acquired before age 7 are disempowering, self-sabotaging, or limiting, we experience stress from the programs that undermine our conscious mind's wishes, desires, and aspirations." So understanding it from cellular biology, Dr. Lipton talks about how our cells have 3 categories of perceptions: a growth response, a neutral response, what he calls elevator music. In other words, you look out at the trees, or you get off on the 8th floor of the building and go into the hallway, and you're neither stimulated, excited, nor agitated, fearful, anxious. Okay, so we have all this elevator music going on where it doesn't really trigger a response in the body. Maybe it's a boring football game you're watching on TV that's a blowout, you don't care anymore. So we have the growth response, the neutral response, and a protection response. It's one of those. They can't have both at the same time. So your cells are typically in a growth response or a protection response, or listening to elevator music. Dr. Lipton identifies love as the most powerful trigger of a growth response. So the cell is getting energy, it's growing, it's expanding awareness, and then of course protection is fear, anger, all those things. And he identifies fear as the most powerful trigger of the protection response. This is the essence of the human defaulting into fight or flight survival mode. Interestingly, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, often called the HPA axis, carries out both the growth and the protection responses in the body. So since the cells can't multitask, they're in one of those modes at all times. If you are constantly or frequently stressed, anxious, fearful, harboring fearful thoughts, you are cutting yourself off from the growth response, which promotes health, vitality, energy, happiness, contentment, and longevity. Dr. Deepak Chopra, the wonderful best-selling author, spiritual guide, East-West medicine uniter, he asserts that you have the power to send your perception switches a different message. Starting point: accept things as they are. Don't judge, don't defend. This comes from the great work of Dave Rossi that we've detailed on all 4 of the podcast interviews. He gets to these points. Don't judge, ever. Don't defend, ever. Accept things as they are. That will help get your cells out of that protection response where you're driven by worries, fears, angers, emotions that emanate from flawed subconscious programming that you downloaded in childhood that wasn't perfect. Instead, here we are, wherever you are, it's okay right now, accept it, and then you open yourself up to the possibility that you can go into growth response more frequently, or perhaps default there, or at least elevator music, right? You want to get out of the basement and get up to at least the first floor. Here's another example that I've written about before. When you're in a traffic jam, now it's terrible. You're going to miss your party. You're going to miss your flight. You're going to miss your important meeting. You can take that opportunity because you cannot change the traffic jam. You accept things as they are. Yes, you're allowed to get angry for 1 minute. Set a timer. As my therapist friend Devora Kravitz says, yeah, you're allowed to get angry about the traffic jam and the missed flight and the missed party, but set a timer on it. Okay, so you have your timer. It's gone off now. Now you're sitting in traffic still, and you can take this opportunity to engage in the breathing exercises that you wish you could practice more, that bring you calmness and contentment, or you can listen to wonderful programming like a podcast or an audiobook. You can make the best of it. Talk to your mates in the automobile and have a nice visit for 2 hours instead of the planned 23 minutes or whatever. Okay, that's fine. Same with a long line. You can take the opportunity to do some breathing exercises. And now you have a mobile device to keep you entertained when you're stuck in a long line, which is wonderful. I'm so happy about that in general, that we have that opportunity in life to be entertained whenever we want, instead of truly wasting away on a long, frustrating line. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But what about when things escalate to higher stakes? I'm going to do another breather show on using the tools and tricks from the biology of belief to navigate relationship difficulties, and do so in a way that can develop and truly prompt a tremendous breakthrough in how you interact with your romantic partner.